To find a fulfilling career, let go of your dream job. Well, I suppose it sounds a bit vague if you read this statement. Maybe you read it in the schedule of the event already. So to get this a bit more concrete and to get onto grips with this, my approach will be from 3 different perspectives. So in the first part, I will be sharing my own experience with career and perfect jobs, because I believe I have had a couple of jobs that you might want to call perfect. More about that in the first part. Then a little bit more on the research, and we'll have a look at different schools of thought, taking a look at this idea of a perfect job or a dream job. And in the third part, we'll draw some conclusions for the practical application. So what can you do about this? How can you get to a fulfilling career instead of just aiming for a dream job? So first of all, my story. Well, for the past roughly 3 years, I used to fly planes as a commercial airline pilot. Not such big planes, not the A380, but the A320 aircraft. So 2 engines less, but still like somewhat between 60 and 80 tons of weight. And I must say, I have a big passion for planes since I'm roughly maybe 6 or 7 years old. So it's a bit like this cliche thing. And there are a couple of things that I really enjoy about flying. It's on the one hand, like this emotional look out of the window. If you're approaching an airport at night and you see all the lights, you probably have been traveling by plane someday, sometimes. So you know what I'm talking about. And the other side is the technical aspect. I'm just super curious how such a big and heavy thing like the aircraft on the picture weighs roughly 500 tons, how this thing can get into the air and fly even several hours. It still stuns me looking at that picture. However, there is a little but, because during that work, what I felt missing was some meaningful component, or a like a contribution I was bringing towards society and towards mankind in general. So it's nice to get people from A to B, and I know that, for example, connecting families and all that stuff, it's helpful. However, what I had always troubles with is the environmental impact of flying. And yes, it's a lot of tons of fuel that you put into such a plane, and even into the smaller A320. So yes, I was worrying about that for quite a while. And that's the reason why I don't think it's the perfect job, because this is something I would definitely want to change within that job, and having a less harmful, less environmental impact for flying. And it is clearly connected to the second job or second profession I had, because I hold a master's degree in industrial engineering. And in my final year, I did some studies how to incentivize airlines to get more sustainable fuels, get used to sustainable fuels, which are obviously at the moment well priced above conventional kerosene. So you need to find ways to incentivize the airlines to get there. And I did a lot of research about that. And here I had this meaningful component. I felt like, well, I'm working on solving an important problem that we're facing for our society, and how we can tackle climate change. And this, as well as the curiosity for detail, for science, for knowledge, gave me quite a degree of satisfaction towards in that field of work that I did. However, also there was a little but, which was, I would describe it as the connection to others. I mean, of course, I do have friends and stuff, but during the scientific research, it was more or less I was working on my own for a certain amount of time, I went to my supervisors, received some feedback, started working again. So it did not really feel like I was interacting with people so much, or at least not to the degree I would have liked to interact with people. So again, I would say a great job, and apparently from the outside it looks like a perfect job, I think. But at least in my perspective, it was not perfect. So yeah, that's about that. And maybe you wonder, like, what is that guy doing right now at the moment? It's a bit harder to find a representative image for that. I do freelancing, so I'm a freelancer. That's why, like, that stuff on the table is shown there. What I do is I help people in finding fulfilling careers and developing fulfilling work for them. And as a learning designer, I design learning experiences. So either for groups in training sessions or for individuals in coaching sessions. And here I think I have a well higher degree of interaction with others because, of course, you're working with people, you're helping people. So it's far more a people business than the research I did during my master's. And again, I also have this component of meaning and a contribution because I really see I can help people and especially receiving feedback from others is like a great support for the work that I'm doing. And now I'm a bit curious because I guess you are already expecting another but here. And of course, here it comes. There is also a but about freelancing from my perspective. It might be different for you, of course, which is the financial security that I'm experiencing. Because, yes, obviously, it's different compared to being employed at a big company and receiving a fixed salary each month. Because the salary shifts simply by the hours you work and how many contracts you get and all that stuff. So I see a lack of safety in that profession that I'm working on at the moment. So once more, great, I enjoy a lot of things, but still it doesn't really seem perfect to me. And this somewhat made me wonder, is it only me who is like never satisfied with the job that I'm I'm working in at the moment? Or is it more of a general theme? And I did some research, I talked with friends about it and read some books. And today I would like to share like the 2 or 3 key insights that I found in that time with you, because I hope that it gives you a new idea or eventually a new perspective on how you pursue your career plans for the future. And the first thing I'd like to share stems from psychoanalysis, basically saying frustration being sounds a bit contradictory on the first view. The way I understand it, by the way, I found it in a book from Adam Phillips, which is called Missing Out in Praise of the Unlived Life. There is a sources section at the end of the presentation, and you can receive the slides, so you have that. What I take from this statement is that whenever you're not satisfied with something, it can also create some momentum to change things and to actually implement some change in your life. Obviously, it's not always that linear, straightforward, like you think, all right, this sucks, so I'm going to change it, then it's changed and it's better. Because very often we only have control about the actions that we take, but rarely also about the results. So things might turn out very differently than you expect. And then, well, you end up in a different place, but probably not in the place that you were expecting to go. And the second is from not really science, it's more a religious perspective stemming from Buddhism. Eventually you heard of the 4 Noble Truths in Buddhism, which are like the essential pieces of wisdom which lay out the foundation of Buddhism. And one of these four noble truths basically says suffering is inevitable. And for me, this means like there's no way of negative emotions. And we will always at some point experience unpleasant things or unpleasant emotions. It's part of life. And from my perspective, it also makes life more exciting. Like if everything was just joy and happy and harmony, I think there would be some component missing, which makes life the adventure that it actually is. So having said that, I think like this frustration or suffering or being not satisfied with our work is like an element part, an essential part of our lives, and it'll never go away. So I don't think that there is like this one dream perfect thing where you can go to and this is it. So to put it more or less in a metaphorical image, I believe the perfect job is more of an illusion that we're dreaming of instead of a reality that we can find somewhere. And I believe that we tend to hold onto this vision of a perfect job because it already reduces a bit of the pain that we're experiencing in some moments in our jobs. Maybe not all the time, but maybe sometimes. So my example for that would be, for example, if you would go to the office or wherever you work next Monday, and it's like 9 a.m., rainy, probably somewhat between 5 and 10 degrees centigrade outside. Yeah, well, it's not like, wow, finally I can get back to work. It's more like an ordinary experience. And once you start dreaming about vacation at a beach somewhere with rather 30 degrees centigrade and or being able to do your favorite kind of sports or you do for recreation. And all it's like the mechanism behind our dreaming about a perfect job and why this idea there must be some kind of perfect job somewhere out there where I don't suffer or where there is nothing unpleasant in there. So how can this help us now in our everyday lives, and what can we draw from this? And this strongly relates to the title of today. I think the more wise way of dealing with this would be to let go of this illusion of a perfect job somewhere out there that we just need to hunt down somehow, but rather make the work that we're doing as fulfilling as possible. And I try to find ways to make my work as fulfilling as possible. And this, I would like to share the ideas on that and the now coming third part, which something which of you probably heard of is this concept of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So whenever you are intrinsically motivated, for example, because the work that you do aligns with the values that you're pursuing, or because you recognize you can help other people by your work, then you're more persistent to do that work compared to extrinsically motivation, like money or pressure from some boss telling you have to do this. And there is a psychological theory called self-determination theory, which gives some indications on how we can change our intrinsically, our intrinsic motivation. It says there are 3 key factors in influencing intrinsic motivation. One is autonomy. So whenever we have a high degree of autonomy, we can influence the work that we are doing as well as the outcome. So it's not just someone telling us do this task and then move on to the next thing. Your intrinsically motivation will be higher. Same for competence. So when you feel that your skills match the tasks on your desk, your intrinsic motivation will also rise. And the third is connection. So what I described in my work as a researcher, the more connection you feel to others, the more connected you are to people, the more satisfied will you be in your work. So self-determination theory was the one thing I wanted to share with you. And the second thing is probably a bit more popular. It's the concept of flow. And I think there were some talks about it already today, which describes flow as like a state of bliss and pure joy while you're fulfilling a task. So the moments I experienced flow, I always had the sensation that time doesn't really matter. It is just the time passes at a completely different pace. And it was really enjoyable. Afterwards, I always felt very satisfied. And in the source part, there is also more literature about it. For now, I would just lay out the very basic concept, which says that your skill level needs to be high, as well as the challenge level to get into this desired state of flow. So whenever you're performing a task that is challenging for you, but where you also feel that you have great capabilities to complete that task, then chances are high to find this flow state of mind for your work. Having said that, I would like to point out one idea on how we can get this actually into our work lives, because these were more or less the theory parts, and how to apply them in our everyday lives is, of course, the big question in the end. I'm pretty sure that you know yourselves far better than me, so I think the best way for you is to figure out your own way. My personal recommendation would be to start with one habit. So, for example, build yourself a habit to experience flow every day. What I do in my life, I play the violin, and by practicing, I try to get a flow experience as often as possible. Of course, it does not happen every day, so sometimes I just scare my neighbors. On other days, I get to this flow state. I'm feeling like being capable of things I have not thought of before, and it's pure bliss to me. Of course, creating this habit will take a bit of motivation and some practice until you have established it. Once you got to that point, I'm pretty sure that it will increase your motivation, because you see, all right, there is the first success. I see already the first small results in my life. So motivation comes in. And I would recommend to use this motivation to extend then. So see if you can find other areas where you can impact your work. For example, increasing the degree of autonomy in your work, or your level of competence, or the connection with others, whatever seems the most appropriate for yourself at that point. Having said that, I hope that the experience from the work that I did as a pilot, researcher, and freelancer gave you a couple of ideas about this illusion of a perfect job, and that maybe you found another idea on how to make your work more fulfilling in the second part, using either self-determination theory or flow theory. As I said, I think you are the best experts of yourselves, so I'm pretty sure you will find a great way to find a fulfilling job, a fulfilling career in whatever you do and whatever you're really good at. For now, I'm looking forward to dive into the questions and answers. If you want to find out more about running a newsletter, which I will share a link to sign up to in the chat in just a minute. And when you sign up for that, I will also send you the slides of this presentation, so you get this and everything of the presentation if you want some further readings.